Hey everybody, Jane here, and today I'm going to do a review of Girl Made of Stars by Ashley Herring Blake. This is a young adult contemporary story about a girl named Mara who has a twin brother named Owen. Owen's girlfriend Hannah accuses him of date rape, and the plot of the book is basically them kind of trying to deal with the aftermath of the accusation. Ultimately, Mara believes the rape accusation, and it does affect her relationship with her brother. But at the same time, there's a lot of stuff at the school, like the kids at school don't necessarily believe Hannah, and so she's getting a lot of pushback from that. Besides the main storyline with that, Mara also is having a complex relationship with Charlie, who is a non-binary character who was assigned female at birth and is kind of exploring her complexities of feeling of not really feeling like a girl, but not really feeling like a boy, not really knowing where she stands. Also, Mara has kind of her and Charlie have recently broke up, and Charlie and her are best friends, so it's kind of complicated because they both still have feelings. In addition to this, Mara also is kind of experimenting with a relationship with a boy named Alex, all while this is going on. This book was a 4 out of 5 for me. I liked how it was written, as far as it's a very quick, simple, easy read. It's very dialogue heavy, which I appreciated. It had some very powerful moments. I love the star motif. So the brother and sister, because they're twins, they really identify with Gemini, and they tell each other these beautiful stories. And that's like one of the ways that they communicate. They tell each other stories about children made of stars. And so I really enjoyed that motif throughout the book. I think so many of the issues brought up in this book are important and worth exploring, and I loved the complexity of it. I also loved that Mara and Owen were twins, because that made her coming to terms with what he'd done so much more poignant. While I did really like this book, there was a lot that really frustrated me about the book as well. For one thing, there's just so much happening for a book that is really not very large. And when I got this book from the library, I really was hoping it would be mostly about Owen and Mara. But I felt like her relationship with Charlie and with Alex ended up overshadowing a lot of the issues with her and her brother, which is what I wanted out of this book, and I didn't get as much of that as I wanted. It was cool, the exploration with Charlie and Mara's own kind of dealing with how she feels about things, but I really would have liked more focus on what happened with Owen. Another thing that kind of bothered me is I felt like this book was more about ideas than about characters. I really wanted a deeply emotional character story, but at the end of the day, I felt like it was more about exploring ideas and making a statement than it was talking about what Mara as a character was going through. And I'm not really sure why I feel that way. I just, at the end of it, I felt like the author was making a lot of statements about stuff, and I didn't feel like we'd necessarily hung out with Mara and gone through the things that she went through and explored the complexity of her feelings. I am going to get into some spoilers here. They're not major spoilers, I don't think, but they were things that I felt like needed addressed. And so if you don't want any spoilers, go ahead and click off now. my kind of closing comments about this book were it was good, obviously trigger warnings for rape. It was worth reading. It wasn't the best. It wasn't exactly what I was hoping for when I picked it up, but it was a good read. I enjoyed it. All right, now on to the spoilers. There's a couple things that I felt like I needed to talk about a little more. One of them is that at the time that Owen rapes Hannah, he is intoxicated. And that is never really fully addressed, especially with Mara's negative feelings about her brother. And please let me be clear, intoxication does not excuse rape. But I just felt like the fact that her brother was heavily intoxicated when all this happened is not really explored, not really brought up. Nobody's like, hey, maybe you need an alcohol program. It's just, you're a terrible person and I can never really forgive you, deal with what you've done because you raped Hannah, even though he was drunk. And I mean, he's a teenager. They're in high school. He shouldn't even be drinking. He is underage drinking, and this is not really an issue. And I felt like it needed to be an issue. And again, not an issue in, hey, I was drunk, please excuse my raping, but it just, I felt like it needed addressed way more than it was addressed. The other thing that I really got frustrated with this book, because I thought I didn't like that it did this, is Mara has an experience in her youth, in her like younger years, of being molested. Owen doesn't know this, and it really affects her response to the situation. I really would have preferred they not do that, because it really changed so much of how the story went, and I wanted a more pure view on, as a woman, how do you deal with your brother, even though he's intoxicated, even though it's a girl he's had sex with, raping his girlfriend. And if you have previously been sexually abused, that just brings so much complexity to the story, and kind of, it changed how she dealt with it. She is very much bonding with Hannah, the victim of the sexual assault, and it's not like a sisterhood thing, it's a we both had stuff happen that was against our consent. And I didn't like that. I really would have liked it to be just, I think that changed so much of how she felt about the situation. And like, obviously she should still feel upset and hurt, but this is also her twin brother. He was also intoxicated. They're also teenagers. It's also his girlfriend who he's previously had sex with, and I'm not excusing his raping her. Let me just be really clear there. But I do feel like her reaction is so much stronger in a negative way because of her past, and it doesn't explore the more subtleties of the issue. That is her twin brother. And I wish I wish the author hadn't taken that direction of things. So I wanted a different story when I picked this up, and I was kind of disappointed with what I got as opposed to what I was hoping for. I really was hoping for an exploration of, how do I deal with learning that my brother is this type of person, that he did this. Owen is not at all made a sympathetic character. And again, not that we need to sympathize with the rapist, but he was drunk, and it was his girlfriend who he's previously had sex with. That has to come into play when we look at all of the things surrounding how Mara and everybody feels. Like, yes, he was absolutely wrong for raping the girl, but, she's completely freaked out and repulsed by him. And again, we never look at the fact that he's obviously got some alcohol issues and other things like that. It's just, you are a terrible person because you did this terrible thing. And then they made him even more terrible because they're having him like get his friends to gang up on Hannah and say horrible things to her. And just, I wanted to see more of the complexity of their relationship. I wanted to see more of the complexity of, it was a bad situation. And yes, he did something absolutely terrible, but I felt like it could have been handled differently, deeper. I wanted it to be different than it was. It's a story that needed told. I think if you look at all the women who are raped and sexually abused, I mean, almost every woman I know has been a victim. That means that probably some of the men in our lives, some of the men we know, people we've dated, people in our family groups, who knows? They've probably done some of the abusing, because there can't be that many women who have been victims without that many perpetrators. We don't always know what has happened or why it's happened, and so I did think these were important things to talk about. But I would have liked a little bit more of the gray area in this book and the complexity of the emotions that I think are true in this situation. In this book, it's very clean cut, very black and white, especially because of what Mara went through. Mara was a victim of sexual assault, and so things are very cut and dry with how she views what happened with her brother. And again, maybe that's the point. Maybe that's what the author was trying to do. I just felt like it would have been a deeper, better story if we could have taken that aspect out and explored more about what happened and made her brother, demonized her brother a little less and looked at the situation a little bit differently. Again, I don't want any comments that, I'm just victim shaming, because I'm not. Obviously, consent is important. What he did was wrong. But I just feel like it's so extreme that we don't get to see what I felt like the real issue of the book was, which was the relationship between siblings and what do you do when your sibling does something unspeakable. So, yeah, it was good, but not what I was shooting for. If you've read it, I'd love to hear what you thought about it in the comments. Also, the like and subscribe button down there, as is my social media. I'll see you next time.